From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. The Capitol has been declared safe and lawmakers are back at work right now after mobs of protesters stormed into the building today. Washington, D.C. Fire Department says at least 7 people were transported to local hospitals with injuries, and police say one female shooting victim has died. Natalie Brand is on Capitol Hill with more.
Members of Congress made their way through the halls back to the Capitol, flanked by law enforcement officers from multiple agencies.
Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house.
On the Senate floor, Vice President Mike Pence gave a rousing speech as lawmakers reconvened to continue counting electoral votes. Earlier, rioters stormed the building, breaking through doors and busting windows. Capitol Police drew their weapons at one barricaded door from inside the House, though eventually protesters breached both chambers.
We forcefully got pushed through.
CBS News spoke with protester Boyd Camper from Montana, who was inside the Capitol.
Now, we did charge the aisle into the chambers, and we got tear gas and we got pushed back, okay? And after that, I retreated.
You have to go home now. We have to have peace.
President Trump posted a video that has since been removed from Facebook and Twitter, urging calm. Hours earlier, he addressed a gathering near the White House.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
President-elect Joe Biden also addressed the chaos here, calling it an assault on democracy and an insurrection.
Today's reminder, a painful one, that democracy is fragile, and to preserve it requires people of goodwill, leaders with the courage to stand up.
In response to the day's chaos, several Democratic lawmakers are now calling for President Trump to be removed from office. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Now, the president's former defense secretary and chief of staff James Mattis slammed him in a statement saying, quote, "Today's violent assault on our Capitol, an effort to subjugate American democracy by mob rule, was fomented by Mr. Trump." As pro-Trump supporters broke into the Capitol today, Montana Senator Jon Tester was in his D.C. office nearby. He was preparing remarks for the upcoming debate on objections to the presidential vote when the Capitol was breached by protesters.
What we witnessed today is stunning, and it's very, very sad. It makes us weaker domestically as a country, and in the eyes of our foreign adversaries, it is absolutely just cheapens this country like crazy.
Tester, a Democrat, will be voting to certify the Electoral College votes. It gave Democrat Joe Biden the presidency and had harsh words for those who promote the false notion that the election was marred by fraud.
Those are my colleagues who invited this chaos onto our country. I would just say you have inflicted grave harm on our democracy for your own political gain. And the fact is they've enabled violence to enter the front doors of our United States Capitol.
Senator Steve Daines was also ushered out of the chambers to safety. He was one of 11 senators prepared to object to the Electoral College results today, but reversed course on that action around 6 o'clock tonight. He released this statement saying, quote, "Today is a sad day for our country. The destruction and violence we saw at our Capitol today is an assault on our democracy, our Constitution, and the rule of law, and must not be tolerated. As Americans, we believe in the right to peaceful protest. We must rise above violence. We must stand together. We will not let today's violence deter Congress from certifying the election. We must restore confidence in our electoral process. We must and will have a peaceful and orderly transition of power." Well, the newest member of Montana's congressional delegation, Republican Representative Matt Rosendale, also responded tonight to the storming of the Capitol. He said he condemned political violence of any kind and said today was an absolutely terrible day. But unlike Daines, he did not back down from objecting to the vote. Rosendale said, quote, "However, I will not be intimidated by mob violence from the left or right. I will oppose certification of electors from certain disputed states. Those votes today were always about preserving and protecting the integrity of our election process, not any candidate. I will continue to work to ensure our elections are free and secure, and every legal vote is counted and every fraudulent vote is rejected." Wyoming Senators Barrasso and Lummis also sent out statements condemning the protests. And Congresswoman and House Republican Conference Chair Liz Cheney told NBC News today, "We have deep political differences, but we don't resolve those by mob violence." The president's statement was completely inadequate. What he has done and what he has caused here is something that we have never seen before in our history. Over at Montana State Capitol in Helena, protesters gathered peacefully outside to show their support for President Trump. Some singing and chanting, and passing drivers even honking their horns to show support. Even though officials, including some inside the Trump administration, have disputed those claims of widespread voter fraud, demonstrators tell us they feel like their voices have not been heard and that they do not believe the results of the presidential election are legitimate.
This is how Trump supporters are. We don't go through and break buildings. We don't go burning buildings down. We don't go and hurt people, hurt their property. We're not like that. That's not how Trump wanted us to be.
We are not going to go trash storefronts or hurt Americans, but we are going to take our country back. And if that's our last avenue to do, but if they follow our Constitution the way it's written, we shouldn't have to do anything.
Came out today to support our president. I feel like the election was robbed from him. He has fought for us for the last 4 years.
In Billings, local Trump supporters gathered in 2 Stop the Steal rallies today. Q2's Mitch Legge attended both to bring us the details.
On Wednesday, a group of people in Billings gathered at 2 Stop the Steal rallies, encouraging Montana's congressional delegation to vote against certifying the 2020 presidential election results. The rallies were organized by Peggy Miller, a Laurel woman who's been at the head of other pro-Donald Trump rallies in the Billings area since April of last year. She's also organized a few events dubbed Freedom Drives, which comprise a parade of patriotically decorated cars that snaked through Billings and Laurel several times last year.
I've always been engaged and involved for over 30 years, and so this year has even been more of a magnitude with everything that's going on, and just wanting to save America, wanting to have fair, integrity elections. I want the country, I think all of us should want to know that our elections are good and fair.
At 10 a.m., rallygoers met outside U.S. Senator Steve Daines' office in downtown Billings, waving flags and receiving honks from passing cars. Miller offered a message to Montana's Republican leadership in Congress.
And we are encouraging our Congressman Matt Rosendale, our Senator Steve Daines, to continue to take their stand that they've sworn to the Montana right now, that they will oppose the Electoral College vote when it is presented to them.
At noon, the group moved on to the Billings West End and stood on the sidewalk on King Avenue West. The line of rallygoers stretched for about a block on King Avenue West, from its intersection at 24th Street West to the Walmart entrance on King Avenue. In the half hour I spent there were few moments of quiet, with many passing cars honking their horns in support. Dale Blum of Laurel was holding an American flag in the front line of rallygoers.
I'm just really glad to see this many patriots out there and to hear so much honking and stuff from the people here in Billings and stuff like that. I think it shows that they're concerned too.
Blum said he does trust Montana's election results, but not the results in states like Michigan and Wisconsin, which the Trump campaign sued over and lost, with judges seeing no evidence of widespread voter fraud.
No, I think they're being stolen. You know, I've been watching that pretty close and stuff, and I've not had any faith in these voting machines for years and years and years, because you can hack them, you can change things and stuff like that. So no, it's, to me, we're doing the right thing here with written ballots and stuff like that. It's still, you can still steal, but it makes it harder.
While some protests in Washington, D.C. became violent, the rallies in Billings were both peaceful during the time Q2 was on scene. Reporting in Billings, Mitch Legge, MTN News.
Thanks, Mitch. The Montana House Committee held its first hearing today on a bill to expand where and how people can carry weapons, including on college campuses. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian reports on what that bill would do.
On Wednesday morning, the House Judiciary Committee heard testimony on a bill intended to remove some of the restrictions on where Montanans can carry guns. House Bill 102, sponsored by Representative Seth Bergley of Joliet, would allow people to carry concealed firearms without a permit in most places. Those with a concealed weapons permit would be allowed to carry in some additional places, including state and local government offices and restaurants and other businesses that serve alcohol. Supporters said they wanted to limit gun-free zones, arguing the restrictions weren't keeping people safe.
It has no force against somebody who seeks to do wrong. It's only inhibiting the people that are law-abiding, that have the ability and the right to defend themselves or others from harm.
One of the things we go after the most are felons in possession of firearms. And we arrest and we indict multiple of them. I'm going to tell you this, we haven't run into one yet carrying a concealed weapon permit.
The bill would also limit the Montana university system's ability to regulate firearms on college campuses. Campuses would not be allowed to restrict someone's right to have a gun, but they could, for example, require it be kept in a holster. Opponents questioned whether more guns were needed on campus and said that might be a security risk.
There are substantially more instances of accidental shootings, misfires, and other dangerous mishaps with guns than there are of guns being the reasonable solution to any problems on campus.
Campus colleges are simply not equipped to provide that same level of safety for employees or students.
The chair of the House Judiciary Committee said they'll likely take action on the bill next week. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
The bill's sponsor says it serves as a next step after Montana voters approved a ballot measure last year that limited local restrictions on firearms. Tonight, new details on how Montana will roll out COVID-19 vaccines for those with a high-risk medical condition is following Governor Greg Gianforte's plan that he outlined yesterday. Now, this includes everyone 16 to 69 with underlying health issues. Those with the Department of Public Health and Human Services say that this includes those with cancer, Down syndrome, sickle cell disease, severe obesity, and diabetes. Those 70 years and older will also start receiving the vaccine. State health authorities report 6 more COVID-19 related deaths since just yesterday, 2 more in Yellowstone County, and 1 each in Custer, Park, Gallatin, and Missoula counties. 1,042 Montanans have died. More than 78,000 people have now recovered. And Billings Clinic now offering COVID-19 testing results within 24 to 48 hours. The in-house TagPath system, which is a molecular test, has received emergency use authorization from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Thanks to the new test and system, analysis can now happen on-site, significantly reducing the need to send tests to the state or other outside laboratories. Billings Clinic tells us that platform provides results that are much more accurate than antigen testing methods. Still to come on the MTN 9 o'clock news here on the CW. Message through music, a pair of Whitefish musicians joining together to create a song on the importance of wearing masks. We'll listen into that. But first, some snow could be on the way for some areas. Ed's in next with your full 7-day forecast.